Hi, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. So excited you're here because this is my 1-year BookTube anniversary Q&A. I can't believe it. Today is literally exactly 1 year since I started BookTube. It took me a whole year before that to even work up the nerve to start it. It took me a long time. It took me a long time to get here. I wish I had started sooner. I wish the very first time I got the idea, I wish I had just started then, instead of it taking me a whole another year to get the nerve, but it's okay. Things happen. It's fine that it took me a little bit to work up the nerve. I'm just very shy. I'm a very shy person. If you ever think I'm awkward here, you should see me in person. It's even worse. But yeah, I'm here though. I've come a long way in a year. I've come a long way. I've gotten out of my comfort zone. I've gotten much more comfortable in front of the camera. I've gotten much more comfortable even. I've discovered that it's even helped me in front of people in real life. It's helped me be able to talk in front of small groups, not big groups, but it's helped me be able to talk to people. So I've discovered that it's helped me with my confidence, which is amazing. Yeah, I joined a writing group. I've joined a couple of book clubs, started a couple book clubs. It's gotten me so far out of my comfort zone in ways that I never would have even imagined. It's just allowed me to do things I never thought I'd be able to do, and I'm so grateful for that. It's just, if you've ever thought of starting a YouTube channel, if you've ever just had an inkling of a thought of it, just do it. If you think I'm too awkward for it or nobody's gonna listen to me or whatever, just do it. It doesn't matter, because it could help you. I just want to put that out there. Before I start on the Q&A, and I really appreciate everybody who, congratulated me whenever I put the post out there that it was coming up on my 1 year. Everybody was so kind and congratulating me, and a lot of you put questions out there, and I really appreciate it. This community is so special to me and so welcoming, and I just really appreciate it. It's just amazing. I'm always just floored with the sense of community here and on Bookstagram. I started on Bookstagram a year before BookTube and built that community first. The book community is just next level. I can't believe it. It's amazing. Before we get into questions, I want to talk about a couple of things. One is I was able to look and see my most viewed video of the year, but that was this one, and it was my summer plans video, and it's 7 mermaid horror books plus other summer horror reads, and it got 402 views. I was really proud of this video because, I spent a lot of time researching mermaid horror, and I love mermaid horror anyways, and I had a really good time reading it over the summer. But the video itself, like, the lighting was all wrong. It wasn't when I was recording it. When I was recording it, the lighting was fine, but then whenever I put it out there, I was like, the lighting sucks. But I put it out there anyways because the lighting has just been something that it's taken me a while to get used to. It's taken me a while to figure out. But I'm really glad I put it out there anyways because it was well received. People really enjoyed it, even though the lighting sucked. And it's been my most viewed video. So yeah, I'm floored by that. Because whenever I put it out, I almost didn't put it out there because of the lighting, and I didn't have time to re-record it. I didn't have time to redo it, and I was really frustrated with it. Yeah, that's wild to me that's been, I got a crap ton of comments on it. I got a crap ton of likes on it, and it was like hugely viewed, and it was my most frustrating video because of the lighting. So yeah, it's really funny to me, and I'll link it down below in case anybody would like to see it. And then another thing I want to mention, and this is something that I've been asked a couple times by people, and that is whenever I introduce my channel or whenever I get on and say, my opening line, but I've been asked, like, why don't you say your name at the beginning of it? There's a reason for that, and it's gonna sound really weird to a normal person, and that's okay, but I feel like we're friends, and I need to explain this to you guys because it's something that's going to be very important later. And like I said, it's going to sound really weird, and I'm not going to fully explain it because I don't want to be here all day. But I am going to be changing my name. All of it, the whole thing. First, middle, last. And it's something that I've been going to do for a long time. Because whenever I got married, I'm on my second marriage, and that's something else, that's a whole thing. But whenever I got married, there was a whole thing about changing my last name. And yes, it's something that does need to happen. But I was really hung up on it at first, and it took me a while to realize that there was a reason I had a big hang up on it. My first name is something that has never felt like my own, ever. It's something that has never felt like it fit me. It's never felt like it's just been mine, ever. And my middle name either, because there's multiple reasons for that. And one is because I got my first name from my mom's maiden name. And whenever my aunt found out she was pregnant, my cousin and I are 20 days apart. She was born 20 days after me. So mom found out she was pregnant first. Well, my aunt, who I do not have a relationship with, I do not talk to her. I will never talk to her ever again in my whole life. I hope to never see her again, honestly. She's not a good person. But when she found out she was pregnant also, later, they found out they were both having girls. Well, my aunt decided to also name her daughter Ashley, which is ridiculous, even though my mom had already chosen that name. So instead of coming up with her own name, she decided, oh, I'm going to name my daughter Ashley too. And my name was going to be Ashley Nicole. Well, she decides, oh, I'm going to name my daughter Ashley Nicole. So my mom had to settle on Ashley Dawn. What? I've never liked that name. It's never fit me. And then all of a sudden my name was kind of taken by somebody else. Not that it's my cousin's fault at all. My whole life I've never just been called Ashley. Like my family, not my parents, but like they always had called me Ashley Dawn. And I've always hated it. I've always resented it. So it's always like, they've always called me Ashley Dawn, Ashley Dawn, Ashley Dawn. And it's never just been Ashley. So I've always hated it. So it's always been a whole thing. I didn't realize how much it bothered me until like my adult life. There's been other things that I won't even get into, but it's bothered me to the point like in adult life, I got this job. Sorry, I'm going off on a whole tangent. I just wanted to explain a little further. But I got this job in my adult life like just a few years ago. And when I started there, I was told I couldn't be called Ashley at this job because there was already an Ashley there. And they were going to call me Dawn. And at first I thought, I really need this job. I'm just gonna go with it because I've already accepted it and I've already, whatever, I'm gonna accept it. But it bothered me so bad because I already had this hang up about my name, and it bothered me so bad that I quit. Like I just quit. I didn't even have another job lined up. It bothered me so bad that I couldn't. I'm just like, no, no, I'm not just gonna be accepting that I have to go by freaking Dawn. They don't even like. So all that to say, whenever I got married and my husband kept asking me like, when are you changing your name? When are you changing your name? And I got so peeved about it, so frustrated about it. And I kind of just said, how come I have to change my whole identity, because I'm getting married, and which I understand, and I'm fine now taking his name. But when I'm taking his name and I'm changing my last name, I'm just going to change my entire name, first, middle, and last, because I would like to have my own identity and I would like to have my own name that I get to choose. So that's why I don't introduce myself on my channel, because I don't want it to be confusing later. Even though everybody pretty much knows my name is Ashley, I would like to at one point be able to introduce my channel and introduce myself as my new name, and it not be confusing later. All of a sudden everybody's like, why is she all of a sudden introducing herself as a different name? Because I am going to be changing my name this next year, finally, because I didn't want to just rashly choose a name that was, I wanted it to mean something, and I want it to be very me. I want it to feel like me, and I wanted it to be, I just wanted it to be me. I want it to feel like my name. So it's a whole thing. So sorry for the whole rant. But I just felt like that needed explaining, because it's normal to be like, hey, this is Ashley, spooky little book nerd, and I've never done that. So that's why, because I didn't want to. because I didn't want to all of a sudden one day say another name. I do have a name picked out. I won't be going by my first and last name. You won't see my first and last name anywhere. You will see my first and middle name. And that's for multiple reasons, safety reasons. And whenever I publish my book, it will be my first and middle name. It will not be my first and last name. So, yeah, that's how I'm going to be doing things. Sorry about the huge rant, but that is a huge thing that I know that I needed to explain to you guys. And there's a whole lot more weight to my name than just that, but that's how it started, and that's kind of the basis of why I'm changing it. But there's a whole lot more weight to it, and I feel like once I get rid of it, it's gonna feel like a weight's been lifted, and it's gonna feel like I could kind of start fresh, and I just need that, I feel like. So yeah, I am very excited for year 2 of BookTube. I'm not going anywhere. I'm very excited. I have a lot of plans. I have a lot of ideas. There's a separate video coming about my goals and plans for the channel, because, you know, that's normal for the new year coming up. It just so happens that my anniversary on YouTube and all that coincide with the new year. So there'll be a separate video for my plans and goals for the new year. So we'll just do the Q&A for this, and I'm excited to answer your questions. I'm excited. I'm really happy that so many of you asked questions. Let's get to the Q&A. First one is from Cliff, aka Cliff's Dark Gems. Do you have anything in particular that you would like to achieve in 2025, and why? Yes. My biggest goal in 2025 is to finish my book and get it published. And I am working on that. I have been working on my first draft. So yeah, I'm making good progress. Not ready to explain what it's about yet, but I'm very excited with the concept, and it's a good for her horror. I will tell you that. I know that first draft tends to be the easier part, I think, and I've heard that second draft and editing and all that is really hard. So we'll see. But yeah, I hope to get that published, and the why is, you know, I know that your first book tends to not be wildly successful. Book 1 typically just tends to be for you to say you did it, and that's really it. I want to do it for me. I want to learn more about myself in the process, which I already have, and I'm still learning. I want to learn about my writing process. I want to learn more about myself along the way. So it's for me. It's been therapy, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. The next 3 questions come from Lauren with Happy Haunts Library. Any of these questions that come from a channel, all the channels will be linked down below. So be sure to check them out and give them a subscribe if you're so inclined. First question. What is your favorite and least favorite Chucky movie? I love this question. And this one came from the picture that I shared whenever I said that I was coming up on my 1 year, showed me with Chucky hanging upside down. So that's what this question. Yeah, so funny story. My very first horror movie was Child's Play. And I was way too young to be watching it because I was at my friend's house. We were having a sleepover. I don't even think we were 10 years old. We were very young, and we were supposed to be sleeping, and instead we snuck out of bed and we're watching horror movies, and we watched Children of the Corn and we watched Child's Play. Child's Play was first, and I remember we had nail polish out and we had popcorn, and we were just having a great time, and we ended up getting busted by her mother. I don't even think she knew what we were watching. I just know she knew we were up, and I remember her saying, "What the hell are y'all doing? Go back to bed." Because, you know, yeah, neither of our parents had an issue getting onto us at either of our houses. So yeah, but yeah, Child's Play was my first horror movie, so it just holds a special place in my heart. It's the one that I come back to. It's the one that's why you see Chucky in my what do you call it? My profile picture, because that's the first one. That's the one that started it all. It's the one that started my love for horror. Yeah, I was so young. I know for sure that I wasn't 10 years old, because the second thing that I remember watching was Tales from the Crypt. And I remember I was in 4th grade with that one because, again, I remember sneaking up when I was supposed to be in bed and I was in my room watching Tales from the Crypt. So I know I wasn't even 10 years old because I was in 4th grade when I was doing that. So, but anyways, yeah, my favorite is kind of a tie. I have a hard time choosing between one because there are 2 favorites. So yeah, non-answer. One is the second, is Child's Play 2. Because I have a hard time, like 1 and 2 were so good. But Child's Play 2 is, because of the kills were better than 1. Not only the victim kills, but also the Chucky kills were really amazing. You know, the ones from, you know, they were in the factory. Oh, the kills were so freaking good. You know, the one, well, I don't know if I won't spoil it in case anybody's seen it, but the kills were epic. They were so freaking good. And also, I just loved the dynamic between Andy and Kyle. Both of them, you know, they were in the foster home. But Andy and Kyle, like, their whole dynamic was really special. I loved it. But it's all about the kills for me in that one. Really freaking good. But then it's a tie between that one and Bride of Chucky. And I know Bride of Chucky, a lot of people don't like it, but you know how much I love comedy horror, and that's when the comedy really got amped up. Also, the soundtrack in Bride of Chucky was so freaking good all the way through. And I know a lot of people don't like that one because you have the whole young love trope, and you know, that relationship between the teen couple was really ridiculous. However, I love that they introduced the introduction of Jennifer Tilly. You have to love her. And Tiffany is so freaking unhinged. Chucky and Tiffany together, oh my god, the craziness between those two is so good. I mean, that duo is perfection. It's just horror perfection. They are so nuts. They're just so crazy. And then, you know, of course, there's the doll sex scene in that, which is just so over the top. The Tiffany being so unhinged, I love her. I love Jennifer Tilly. It's more comedy than horror. But yeah, you still have some kills. You still have some really good kills in it. And yeah, still have some really good kill scenes. But yeah, those two, really good. Love both of them. My least favorite, hands down, is Seed of Chucky. I freaking hated Seed of Chucky so much. It was awful. Awful, awful, awful. Like, I didn't think it was, I don't know what they were thinking with that one. I don't get it. I don't get it. I know some people really like that one. I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. I think there were some parts of it that were, I could kind of see what they were doing. I kind of can see what they were attempting, but then, yeah, a lot of it I just didn't get at all. So that's one that I could pretty much just skip that one. If I was doing a Chucky movie marathon, I would probably just completely skip that one and just watch the rest of them. What is the last 5-star book you read as of this video? That one would be Nosferatu by Joe Hill, and I just read it. So good. So good. I'm sure you all know the story of that one. Oh, yeah, I'll be doing a review of that one in an upcoming video that you've probably seen by the time this one came out. I'll link it down below. But everything about it was really good all the way up till the end. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It's one that I was trying to drag out through the whole month because I'm reading it for Fright Club, which is hosted by Cliff with Cliff Stark Gems and Christine with Secrets Read. So I was trying to drag it out so that I could do the discussion and it'd be fresh on my mind. And I couldn't because I couldn't stop reading it. That's how good it was. But yeah, nice and creepy. Not some creepy ass kids in it. And of course you have Manx, who is really creepy. Bing is even creepier. And oh, there's so many deplorable characters in this that they're just freaking awful. It's so good. It's so freaking good. If you haven't read it, definitely read it because it's great. And I don't even think you necessarily have to just read it at Christmas time because Christmas Land is one of those places that's up all year. I mean, it did have Christmassy vibes in it because, you know, you have Christmas Land, but it's one of those I could read anytime, I feel like. But yeah, creepy ass book. Just really, really freaking creepy. Very well-rounded story, and like I said, it was good all the way up until the very end. End was really amazing. What is one book that you think would make the perfect movie? And let me tell you, I had the hardest time choosing this one because there are so many I think would make perfect movies. But I went a little bit not too obvious with this one because there was one that I was like, that's too obvious. And this is one I don't have on me because I loaned it out to a friend, and that is The Palo Family Circus by Will Elliott, I believe is the name of the author. Okay, so The Palo Family Circus by Will Elliott, I think would make a great movie for multiple reasons. I think the tone would be really great. It's nice and creepy, but it has a little bit of comedy in it as well. But the overall tone is very dark, even though it has a little bit of comedy in it. And this guy runs across a group of creepy clowns one day, and he sees them toss out this substance, and he decides to pick it up for whatever reason, even though these clowns are very scary. I don't think I would have made that decision, but he does. Well, they track him down, end up at his house. He has roommates, and they start leaving these notes. Not just notes, but they do some other things. Like they're setting things on fire, they're leaving dead bats and notes, and they're doing some really weird things. And they kind of tell him, like, you have, I think it was 48 hours. You have 48 hours to make us laugh. If you don't, we're going to kill you. If you do, you're joining our circus. I believe that's how it went down. It's been a while. Well, he ends up passing their test, and he ends up joining their circus. So, yeah. And here's the thing. When he puts on the clown makeup, he develops this alter ego. So that's the basis, kind of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. And it's really good. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of, there's a lot of back and forth between different characters within the circus. There's a lot of long-standing disputes between different groups of the circus and things like that. But there's a lot of violence in it, and it does have a lot of very dark moments in it, and like I said, there's a lot of some comedy as well. And yeah, I really loved it, and I definitely think it would make a great movie, and a very weird movie. So, and I love weird movies, but I think this would make a great one. Dark, weird, atmospheric, and that little bit of comedy. I think it would be really great, and I would love to see what somebody could make of it. The next question is from Zach with Shady Side Library. Who are your 3 favorite authors? This was a really hard one to narrow down to because I have a lot of favorites, but I did narrow it down. First one is Christopher Triana. He is not somebody that I would recommend to just anyone because he is extreme horror, but he has a very gritty writing style, and also he has a way of writing female characters that's really good, especially for a man. But he has a way of writing very well-rounded female characters. He writes very good characters. Very well-rounded, very well thought out. He can write awful, very deplorable, very despicable characters. I mean, that will make your skin crawl. It's impressive. So, love him. Rachel Harrison, very different reason. You'll notice that my style is all over the place. Rachel Harrison has a very playful writing style, and I have loved everything she's ever written. Her stuff is all over the map. You know, she has werewolves, she has vampires, she has books about female friendship, like cozy witchy horror. She has a little bit of all over the place, but I love her sort of playful, sometimes cozy writing style, and I have enjoyed all of it. And then lastly, Grady Hendrix. And his writing style, if you've read it, is more quirky and also playful as well. But I love that his is more quirky, and he has a thing with attention to detail and having this sort of more immersive writing style. And when I say attention to detail, I mean like if you know, like Horror Store and making the entire book a, layout of an IKEA catalog and things like that. So he thinks of all the little details. So his writing style is interesting. The next question is from M with Dark Violet Dreams. What are your favorite family reads? I know she's asking this. We're both homeschool moms. I have recently had to make a little change with my kids because I've put them in not a public school, but a school situation. Long story, but I have a couple of favorites. First one is The Hobbit. I've recently mentioned that my son and I read this together. I do like reading this aloud to them as well, and you guys know the story of The Hobbit. It is a fun adventure. It's got a lot of action. It's got a lot of fun characters, fun, quirky characters. I love reading this aloud. Not even if they're not in the room, I love reading this aloud. It's just a really fun, adventurous book. And my kids will laugh out loud at the antics of these characters. It's just great fun. And it can really get them in a reading mood. So this one is number 1. And I feel like it's timeless. It's fun no matter. I think it'll always be a fun book. The other one is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. And I'm going to read you the back of what this one's about because it's not going to do it justice. Every year, the people of the protectorate leave a baby as an offering to the witch who lives in the forest to keep her from terrorizing their town. But the witch, Zan, is really kind and gentle. She shares her home with a wise swamp monster and a perfectly tiny dragon. Zan rescues the children and delivers them to the welcoming families on the other side of the forest. One year, Zan accidentally feeds a baby Moonlight, filling the ordinary child with extraordinary magic. Zan decides she must raise this girl, whom she calls Luna, as her own. As Luna's 13th birthday approaches, her magic begins to emerge with unpredictable consequences, just when it's time for Zan to go collect another child. Meanwhile, a young man is determined to free his people by killing the witch, and a volcano, dormant for centuries, rumbles within the earth. Love this. It's so magical, and even though it sounds kind of witchy, it's kind of cozy, and I really love it. Kids really love it too. Of course, my kids are a little older. They are 9.5 and almost 12. So, but these are great. Next question is from E.D. Lewis with E.D. Lewis Reviews. What inspired you to start your channel? So I don't have many people in my personal life who like to read. And, if I have a book that I really love and I'm dying to talk to someone about, I didn't have anybody to talk to it about. I didn't have anybody to talk to about the books. I didn't have anybody to go on and on about. And you know what I mean? Like, you'll get a book that you're just like dying to talk to somebody about, and that's why I started the channel. And I had Instagram, but Instagram is only good for so much talking. You only have so much space to write, and it's just not the same. It's not the same for conversation. So here I could just ramble on. And yeah, that's why. It's just I wanted something a little more personal than Instagram, and I wanted a space to create a community and book conversations, and something more personal than Instagram. So yeah, that's it. And also to get myself out of my comfort zone, which it has done. Next question came from Maggie D. And Maggie noticed my Chucky doll. Besides reading horror, do you collect toys from horror movies? Toys, sort of more collectibles than toys, and I'll show you a few of them. You probably noticed, I won't get it down, but I have Thing up here from the Addams Family. I also have, this is more book related, but a sort of interpretation of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I got these from an antique store. I don't think they were antique, but it's a place that it was like a sort of an antique store, but they have other things too. They have all these booths. Then I have a Pennywise. I can kind of move him around. Like I'll sit him on my shelf. I'll sit him on my shelf or create book stacks with him or like different things. So my dad will randomly send me props like just in the mail. So that's where I got Chucky actually. I have others too, but I'm just showing you some. I don't know who this guy is, but this is another one that my dad sent me. Like, I'm not up to date on all horror movies. I read all kinds of horror, but I am way behind on movies. I will just admit that. So I don't know who this guy is or what this guy is, but I have him. He's fun. This is another one that my dad sent me. I also have a crap ton of art, and I have giant movie posters and things like that too. And they're not hanging up right now because I don't have space to put them in this place. And yeah, I'll explain all that later in my plans and stuff video, which you'll see next week. But yeah, so I do have stuff like that. Next question came from Andrew. What's your most reread horror novel? So I know you guys have heard me talk about this book. It's been a while since you've heard me talk about it. That one is Phantom by Susan Kay. This is my favorite book of all time. This is one that I will continuously talk about. It's one I will reread and reread and reread until I wear this book out. And I will always be recommending to anybody who will listen to me. It's a chunky book, but let me tell you, it's worth it. Especially if you are a reader of Phantom of the Opera, or even if you're not, if you are a reader of Phantom of the Opera, if you plan on ever reading Phantom of the Opera, read it first, because I feel like if you don't, it would change the way you look at it. So don't read this one first, read Phantom of the Opera first, because otherwise it's going to change the way you view Phantom of the Opera, if that makes sense. Because this is the prequel. This is Eric's backstory. That's why I'm telling you to read Phantom of the Opera first. Because if you read Eric's backstory first, it's going to wildly change your perception of him and what's going on. And this so perfectly ties into it, because this starts with Eric as a baby, his birth, all the way up to the building of the opera house, all the way up to him building up his lair, all the way up to his death. So all the way through his entire life, you learn why he is the way he is. You learn everything. It also goes into some of the things that happened in Phantom of the Opera. It ties so perfectly into it. This is a very, very great prequel. Like, she did an excellent job of it, and holding true to the original. So amazing, beautifully written, and it's full of tragedy, horror. There's violence. There's themes of death and music, illusion, magic. There's of course, like, you have references to ghosts, because he's a phantom. You have references to death and a ghost, and how he's always been referenced to death and being a ghost and all that. And yeah, just lots of beautiful quotable lines in this, and it's just pretty. Oh, and there's also themes of power and love and lust, and yeah, it's just gorgeous. It's like I said, my favorite book of all time. Of course, I love Phantom of the Opera too, but yeah, love it. I could reread it over and over. I would highly recommend it. Highly. And it's kind of crazy that it's not more well known, and I wish more people would read it. Like, if you ask me, like, what's a book that you wish more people would read, this one, because it literally has something for everybody in it, I feel like. And last one from Danae, I believe that's how to pronounce your name. I apologize if not. What is one book you reread once in a while? So this one didn't specify horror, and I'll tell you what it is. So aside from horror, and that is Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold by Terry Brooks. So this is a fantasy, an older fantasy. This is one that I was, somebody loaned me, a boyfriend loaned me in college. And this was back in 2004. This is my own copy because I gave his back, so I bought my own copy. And I freaking loved it. And this is one that has this nostalgia for me now because I remember the time of my life that I was reading it. And yeah, it just has a special place in my heart at this point. And it's full of adventure. This guy is going through a divorce and he has nothing left to lose in the world. He sees this ad for this kingdom for sale and it's for like $1 million. And he's like, what the hell? I got nothing left to lose. So he just buys it. Well, what he doesn't know is that it's in shambles. You know, it's got all these issues and he's kind of now responsible for kind of piecing it back together. Because the barons refused to recognize a king and taxes hadn't been collected for years. The dragon Strabo was laying waste the countryside while the evil witch Nightshade was plotting to destroy no less than everything. And if that weren't enough for a prospective king to deal with, Ben soon learned that the Iron Mark, terrible lord of the demons, challenged all pretenders to the throne of Landover to a duel to the death, a duel no mere mortal could hope to win. Yeah, so it's full of adventure, and of course there's dragon and a witch and all these things, but yeah, I freaking love it. It's one that I love to reread every now and then because yeah, it's just full of nostalgia for me, and like I said, it just reminds me of that time in my life. And it's really fun. It's a really fun book. If you love fantasy, and especially like this older sort of fantasy, I think you'd really get a kick out of it. I have rambled long enough. Sorry for the rants, sorry for all the rambling, but this was a lot of fun. Like I said, I appreciate you all for being here. I appreciate you guys sticking around for a year. Most of you have been here the whole time, and I really appreciate you. Here's to another year. I have a lot of things in the works, have a lot of things planned for you guys, and yeah, I'm really stoked about it. So here's to another year. I will see you on Friday. Bye for now.